My name is Kelsey Huntley. I am a survivor of abuse. I'm a survivor of rejection. I'm a survivor of mental and physical abuse. I was adopted really young. I don't know the specific age only because I don't have documentation or anything like that, but I believe it was when I was really young based off of the earliest pictures that I do have. I remember my mom told me when I was about maybe 12 or 13, she sat me and my sisters down and she told us that we were all adopted. And the story that I had in my mind was I had a really bad past. You know, my parents were pretty much saving us by adopting us. And so that was kind of the story I had in my head. But ever since the day that I knew that I was adopted, I always felt like I never fitted in. I always felt like there was something missing about me. I grew up going to church. My parents were pastors, always the last one to leave, and just staying there and making sure everything was good. Me and my sisters, we were singers. We would sing in the choir. I played instruments. My mom was a foster parent, and so different kids would come in and out of the house. So not only was I adopted, I also experienced other children coming in and out of our home. I also very early on started to deal with abused by my adopted father. It overall was a strict household. We were very religious and had to be in church and all of those things. And my mom, she wouldn't let us go over certain friends' houses. And school, we always had to make sure we were getting good grades in school, and if we didn't, that wouldn't look really good for us. So it was really strict as far as trying to make sure you were doing the right thing. My dad, he was more so the more lenient parent. We kind of looked to him for the fun things, and he would take us to, you know, the movies and different things like that. And so when he would come home, it would be like a breath of fresh air because our mom all day would be drilling us on cleaning the house and doing all these things. I remember this one, like a defining moment for me. When Hurricane Charlie hit, that was a really bad hurricane that came through. And so me and my family, we had to stay in a hotel for a period of time while our home was going through repairs. And so that is why my father, he had to step up and do the repairs on the home. It honestly felt scary because at the time I was young, and so you didn't know what was going to happen. You didn't know if your home was going to be recovered or what was going to happen or how you're going to eat. We were taking turns, me and my sisters, to help my father fix on our home. And this night was my turn to go help him. I remember being alone in that closet and being nervous and kind of wondering, why was he making a pass at me? What did I do to make him want to look at me in that way? Or why was I in that position with him when he's my father? It felt uncomfortable, and I think being young, you kind of don't know where to place those emotions. You don't know really what to do with it. And so I think I was kind of confused. I remember laying down in the closet, and I remember him telling me to take off my pants. And I remember him kissing on my neck, and I just remember being confused and wondering, why is this happening? And then all of a sudden, like, my heart was beating so fast because I didn't know what was going to happen next. I didn't know if he was going to actually have sex with me. And then all of a sudden, like, he told me to just stop and put my pants up. And he told me, don't ever let a man do that to you. And so in that moment, I was confused because what he was doing to me wasn't right. I didn't feel comfortable, but I did what he said. I didn't ask any questions. I do remember nightly, and I don't know a specific time frame of these incidents because it was happening so often, but every so often, nightly, he would come into my room at night and take me to our garage. Our garage is basically like another room in the house. And so I remember nightly, it wouldn't be consistent, but maybe sporadically every other night, he would come in my room and kind of lure me to the garage and take me in there and would have sex with me in the garage. And I remember it would be happening very often. My mom, she was on heavy medication, and so she would be asleep because my mom, she had arthritis, and so she would always be on heavy medication, so it would pretty much put her to sleep. And so he had free reign, and he would come in the room and pull me into that garage nightly. I do remember other times where he did like construction, like he paved roads, and he had like a yard where he would park his truck. And I do remember he had like a brown Bronco. That was the type of car that he had. And I remember he always wanted to take me somewhere, like, I'll buy you some snacks if you come with me. Pretty much bribed me. And I went for it. And so instead of taking me to the store first, he would take me to the yard where he would park his truck. We would ride in his Bronco. And so when everybody goes home, he has the key to get inside the gate, all of that. So he would park his Bronco next to his truck and make sure there was nobody on the other side. And he would get over on top of me on the passenger side, and he would have sex with me. I remember that so clearly, and it was like I never had control over my body. Whenever he wanted to do these things, it was like my body was his body. So I never had a say in anything. I just let him do it. He would take it as if I was his partner. He would say things to me like, you know, we can go get a hotel together. We can go do such and such together, just me and you. In my mind, I was just like, what are you talking about? But I never said anything. He will also like put in my head like, it's just me and you. We're together. Like he was in a relationship with me. And I remember when we were riding to the store, after he's done everything, he'll give me a towel to clean myself, and then he'll ride me to the store, and then he'll hold my hand and, you know, make it seem like I'm his person. And that was very twisted to me because I never knew how to respond to him saying we're supposed to be together and I'm his daughter. I guess there was a nightly routine as far as me going to bed, and then him pretty much telling me to wear something that's easy, either like a nightgown or something like that that's easy, and pretty much letting me know to be prepared, you know. And sometimes I would be looking for it because, you know, it was kind of like a regular thing. And then sometimes I would be really scared. Like I didn't want nothing to happen at all. I didn't want to have sex at all. Sometimes, like, he wouldn't take me to the garage. Sometimes he would just go to my room and just feel on me and then like insert his fingers inside of me. I mostly remember him taking me to that garage and having sex with me in the garage. It was definitely confusing, and now that I think about it, now that I'm older, I can imagine how that little girl was, because my mind was so jumbled of emotions. Like I felt so guilty at a certain time because in my mind I was like, do I actually want this? Is this something that I crave for, or is this something in me that is attracting him, that is making him want to come and have sex with me? And so my mind was so twisted and jumbled, and I was really taking it hard on myself. As a little girl, I was being very hard on myself because I thought it was my fault. The times where he would have sex with me, I remember my mind sometimes zoning out. Like I would just zone out, and that would help me so I wouldn't feel anything. And sometimes I would feel all of it, like him all up inside of me. Like I would feel it, all of it, and it hurt really bad. Like my body would be sore for days. And mind you, like I was a virgin, so that was something that I had to go through with my own body, trying to figure that out with those emotions. I started to become very hyper aware of those thoughts in my mind. So it was hard to kind of decipher every emotion that I was going through and trying to place it into perspective because I was very confused. It definitely changed me socially. I feel like I was crying for help in a lot of different ways. Part of me wanted to be loved, but not loved the way my father was giving it to me. I just wanted to be loved by a man, and I was really looking for that. And I felt like because I was violated by my father, that I was trying to get validated by other people. I feel like I was acting out in certain aspects. I do remember one time sneaking out of my house to go to a boy's house, and this was like the first time that I remember actually having sex without it being with my dad. And This was something I've been wanting to try for a really long time, because like I wanted to see if it was just different. And so I remember I really didn't even like this guy. He was really into me and just, really liked me, was trying to pursue me, and I really wasn't having it. I just wanted to have sex. And so snuck to his house and we had sex, and to be honest, it did not appeal to me at all. I was like, this is really not fun. This is not what I thought it would be. I struggled so bad with depression. I struggled so bad with holding everything inside. I didn't really have an outlet. I had like a best friend in high school, and I really felt like I couldn't tell her, because people always looked at my life as the perfect life. My parents were providers, pastors, and nobody really knew what was going on the inside. So it appeared to be like we were living well. So I really didn't have anyone to tell any of these things to. So I was really holding these things inside, and I would really turn to writing. It started early, where I would just take a paper and a pen and I would sit outside and I would just write. And that was something that I did often to kind of escape my reality of what was actually going on. I guess I would say a social butterfly in school. I think I was like that because I was kind of running from my home life. And so I know there were many times, even with the best friend that I had made in high school, where I really couldn't tell her what I was going through. And people say I was always fun to be around. I was always laughing and smiling, and nobody really knew that I really was depressed and going home and, being abused. That was really hard. It's like carrying something that's so heavy. It's like a weight on your shoulders that you feel responsible for. Like, I felt like this was my duty to carry this, and by all means, like, I had to do it. Nobody was gonna know. I wasn't gonna let people see me break. Like, it's crazy. That was my mindset. But I carried this heavy thing and it hurt me so bad. Like, I had no idea how to deal with it. No person to talk to about it. No person's shoulder to cry on about it. I carried it for a really, really long time. And so it was hard. It was really hard. It lasted until I moved out the house when I was 18 years old. That is a long time, from 14, 15 to 18. It got difficult because I'm the youngest out of my siblings, and they started leaving, going to college, and at one point I was home by myself. So it was just my parents and me. So it was definitely more frequent. I was older, but it was frequent because I was by myself. That was a challenge. Because I couldn't hide. I was just there, inaccessible. All I could say is me leaving was really God. So MySpace days was back then really popular, and I remember I had saw this lady. She was like an artist, like she was promoting her music on MySpace, and I have no idea. I believe she inboxed me and her music, and I'm not even sure how we kind of got on the topic of like speaking. I think I was just so desperate for help that I kind of just, I don't know. And so we became friends. She gave me her number just from a few conversations we had through MySpace. She gave me her number and we talked one time, and she said, I don't know, but I want to share my story with you. Like, I feel led to share my story. And so she was telling me how she had like got, and something of those lines had happened to her, and she was like, I'm just gonna break the ice, if you want to share anything with me, you can. And so all of a sudden, like, I just told her what I was currently going through, and it was just crazy how it all happened. She comforted me, and we hung up the phone that night. The next day she called me and was like, I couldn't go back to sleep. Your story, what you told me, it was sticking with me, and I could not sleep, and I prayed and talked to God about it. And she was like, I want to offer you a place in my home if you're willing. And she asked me how old I was first. So I was 18 at the time. So she was like, okay. So she was married and she had 3 kids at the time. And so she was like, I talked to my husband, and he's okay with it. And so as long as as you're okay, I'm willing to take you in. And so without a thought, I said yes. Like, I didn't think about it twice. The day that I was going to leave, I was preparing myself because I was freaking out. I was like, my parents are gonna freak. And I kind of lied and pretty much told them that I was going to go to college. The young lady that I moved with, she stayed in Daytona Beach, and there was a college that my sisters had went to, which is Bethune-Cookman. And so that was kind of the storyline, so they wouldn't think I'm just leaving just because. So I used that as my scapegoat. But the day that I actually was leaving, I was pretty much freaking out because I didn't want them to say anything to the person that I was leaving with. And you know, I kind of said I told my dad, but I didn't tell my mom I was leaving. So he kind of knew, he relayed the message to her. And so I was praying that she wasn't going to be there because I feel like she was going to give me a lecture, being that, you know, she's a strict parent. And that day she was not home at all. It was just my dad. And so that was the most smoothest, easiest day of my life. Like, I was freaking out about it, but it was the easiest shift that could have went. I moved with her and I lived with her for a couple years. We are still close to this day. We still know each other, but I definitely feel like that was just a stepping stone for me to help me. And I always say to this day, God sent angels on my path to guide me and to lead me to different places in my life, and she was one of them that God had sent to me because I literally did not know how I was gonna get out of that situation. And so I did stay with her for a couple years, and she actually helped me publish my book that I wrote about my life, but that was later down the line. When I lived with her, I did feel a lot of emotions still. I still was hurt, still was broken, still had to go through a lot of things. I'm now 33 years old. I have written and published my first book, published that 5 years ago, and that is about my story. I now am a motivational speaker. I do mentor, and I help other women get out of the situation that I was in, but also help them get their voice, because I always felt like I didn't have a voice. I didn't know who I was. My identity was just torn down to the ground, and so finding my voice was good for me because it allowed me to build myself in the right way and to heal correctly. And healing, it took me a while to really heal from that because that was a scar that was really deep. And so now I'm just really living my life, making sure that I'm here to help the next person. I do see myself as not that girl anymore, but that took a lot of work. And I'm really thankful for the community that God has placed around me because I couldn't have done it by myself. There was always key players in my life that helped me, guide me to where I am now. You know, I do take therapy. I do make sure that I'm always taking inventory of my thoughts because, you know, sometimes we can get triggered or slip back into, you know, the way we used to respond or a mindset. If a thought comes up, you know, we'll probably slip back into a trigger moment. And so I always take inventory to make sure, like, okay, let me go back and make sure that I've healed in this place, or let me make sure that I've forgiven these individuals that have hurt me, because, you know, if I do happen to see them, I don't want to have anything in my heart. I want to heal, I want to love, and move forward in those places. There was a lot of hurt, resentment, anger, and even like unforgiveness within myself. For a long time I felt guilty and I didn't forgive myself for a long time, and I feel like for a period of time, like it was like a dark cloud that was looming over my head. I wanted to take my life plenty of times. I didn't feel like I was worthy to even be here, to be worthy of love. Even people that would come in my life that, you know, they're trying to help me and I would push them away. I had trust issues for a long time, actually, and my wall was up super high, like super, super high. Like I wouldn't let nobody come near me for a long time. And so it took a long time for me to gradually let those walls down and begin to love and trust and allow the right people in. I've experienced that even in my adult life, just really gradually letting those walls down. I would say give yourself some grace. Don't be so hard on yourself. Healing is a journey. It's just you take steps. It's not an overnight thing. I know for myself, I was always hard on myself. I would think I was supposed to be somewhere and I wasn't, and I was just so hard on myself. And sometimes you got to think back on where you came from and all that you've dealt and put up with. When I look back at the younger person that I was like, wow, she went through a lot. Like, she endured a lot. And so giving myself grace even now in my adult life is because that little girl went through so much and she survived as a little girl. But then you being hard on yourself as an adult doesn't make it fair for yourself. So I would say just give yourself some grace. I would just tell her that she's not wrong, that her feelings are valid. I would tell her that she's loved. And being that I was adopted, but then also abused by the people that adopted me, it did feel like I was dropped. And it did feel like the people that were supposed to care for me and be there for me weren't. And so I would just give her all the love that I could, the younger me, because, you know, sometimes when you are dealt the cards that you're dealt, that sometimes you feel like you're missing out or you don't have enough or you can't do it. And so I would just let her know, like, it's okay. Everything that you're feeling is okay. Don't feel wrong for feeling how you feel. I had a friend in high school. We used to write in this notebook, and I was kind of drawn to her because we pretty much had like the same faith, and she believed in God and she was just really into God. And so I was just really drawn to her because I kind of needed that in my life at the time. All of a sudden, like, we were writing in this notebook back and forth, and we would tell each other what we were going through. And so I would write to her like details, like down to the T, like things I would go through, and I would write it in this notebook and we would pass it back and forth. And so I remember there was a day where she took the notebook and the next day she was supposed to give it back to me. And so I asked her for it and she was like, oh, I left it at home. And so I remember one day in class, I was called to the office and I really thought I was in trouble. And so get to the office and there's a guidance counselor and she has the notebook that it looks like the notebook me and my friend were writing in. And I wasn't sure if that was the notebook, and then walked up to her and she asked me, is this your notebook? My heart dropped because the things that were in there was really deep personal things. And so I didn't lie, I told her yes. And I believe she read like the first page of the notebook. And she pretty much told me, do you know we have to call your mother about this? And I literally was like, please do not call her. And they was like, we have to, because this involves the authorities and we have to make sure your mom knows about it. So, you know, they called the police and they called my mom. And all I remember is when my mom came to the office, I wasn't in the office. They sat her down and told her without me. When they opened up the door and I walked into the office, my mom's eyes was filled with tears. And I'm just looking at her like, what did they tell her? She looks at me and was like, is this a fantasy? Like, is this true? And I told her, no, like, this is true. And I believe she read like one of the first pages of the notebook. And so she was really hurt by it. And they called the police in there and, you know, asked me if I wanted to press charges. And, you know, I said no. At the time, I said no. And so they dispersed and took notes and all of that. And then afterward, my mom took me home. And this was the day that I knew that she knew, because it was presented to her. And the moment we left out of the school, it was like her face changed. Like, she never was given this information. She was telling me, do you want to go get ice cream? Like, I was just looking at her like confused. Like, her face just switched. Like, I didn't just tell her what happened, or she didn't just read it, or any of this didn't just happen. And so from that day on, I knew she knew. But before that, I already knew she knew. But this was the defining moment that I knew my mom knew what was going on with me. I felt very sad because she was supposed to stand up for me. She was supposed to protect me. and she didn't. It felt like she really wanted her marriage over me, and she really wanted an image over the truth. My mom, she's in the church, and our family is appears to be good financially, take care of the kids. And so when you have this kind of outlook, you want to protect that image, and I felt like she was trying to protect that image, and it really hurt me that she did not protect me in that way and stand up for me in that way. I would say listen to the words that are coming out of their mouths. When someone, your child, your daughter, your son, says, this is what's happening to me, don't take it lightly. Make sure you're even watching what's happening around them, or when they go over to someone's house, make sure you're watching, or even just the nonverbal signs, like things that are not even being said, the acting out, even if they're hyper. And it doesn't always have to be like a hormonal thing. Just make sure you ask those questions, because sometimes something could have happened and you're not paying attention. And I feel like if my parents, pretty much my mom, was really attentive like she should have been, it could have been stopped. But if you're so focused on yourself and your own life or your own marriage, trying to save someone that you quote unquote love, and you're putting that over the safety of your child, then you're doing yourself a disservice, because you're allowing them to go through something that you could prevent them from going through. So I feel like you need to be attentive to the things they say, and even the things that they don't even say.